Well, as I mentioned earlier, next Thursday, everyone across our country will be celebrating the national holiday of Thanksgiving. 2 nights before, on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m., we will join our area's sister congregations of faith in celebrating the annual community interfaith service of Thanksgiving, this year hosted by Second Baptist Church on Walnut Grove. It's going to be quite interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Well, this week's Torah portion gives us some guidance for our lives as we anticipate next week's celebration of Thanksgiving. This week's Torah portion is called Chaye Sarah, which means the life of Sarah. What sets this portion apart from many of the narrative portions of the Torah is that although it is called the life of Sarah, it actually opens with Abraham making arrangements for the burial of his wife, Sarah. Abraham must now attempt to secure a clear title for the cave of Machpelah and the surrounding land in which he will bury Sarah. Now, in biblical times, there were 2 ways to acquire land. One was through warfare. The victor won the land through confrontation, and as long as they or their descendants maintained a strong military presence, they kept the land. Unfortunately, there is always the possibility that the other side will regain their military strength, instigate a new war, and take back the land. Not the type of stable situation a grieving widow would want, or widower for his burial place for his late wife. The second was by purchasing the land. Now, if both sides agreed upon a selling price and signed a deed of title, then the new owner would have an undisputed claim to the land. And all the land in question was part of a much larger area already promised by God to Abraham and Abraham's descendants, us. Abraham chose the path of negotiation to purchase the land. But why is Abraham going to so much trouble to negotiate a clear title for the land, especially when some might consider that the land had first been offered as a gift by the Hittites and then certainly as a gift by God? Well, according to some scholars, Abraham wished to secure a clear title so that future generations would never need to prove ownership. This portion then opens by celebrating the life of Sarah, which, understandably, cannot be fully recognized until after she has died. Even the Talmud recognizes this by stating, "The righteous in their death are called living." Well, even after death, the Torah's reference to Sarah is from life, not death. Perhaps one of the most difficult mitzvah or divine obligation incumbent upon us in Jewish tradition is bringing our loved one to their final resting place. Beyond this, though, is the truly difficult task of continuing to live life in the face of such a loss. Well, over time, Jewish tradition has evolved a path upon which both the mourner and the supportive community undergo as they walk, quote, through the valley of the shadow of death. There are steps to be taken after someone has died in preparation for burial, and there are additional steps the mourner takes, beginning first with 7 days of mourning, and then 30 days, and then for the balance of the first year. Each segment of these phases of grief that the mourner passes through can bring them one step forward as they pass through this valley of grief and pain and return to their journey of living life. But anyone who has lost a loved one can tell you, losing someone dear to you is not like catching a cold. You know, you feel absolutely miserable for a few days, and then gradually you regain your health, leaving the effects of the cold behind as a vague memory of discomfort. Instead, life continually provides moments in which the memory of a loved one, perhaps even the very real sensation of their presence, enters our minds. The question then becomes, how do we actively sustain and carry on the visions, the dreams of our loved ones after they die? And how do we re-enter life after losing a loved one? What can we do that will enable us to once again enjoy life? Well, let me move backwards in time for just a moment. It was immediately after Shabbat worship services, several years ago, that a member of our congregation, let's call her Sadie, approached me and began sharing with me the memories of her late husband and the grief she continued to feel after his death. As life would have it, that Shabbat was the first anniversary or the yahrzeit of his passing. And in spite of all the loving support she had received from her family and friends, Sadie was still no closer to re-entering life with the same sense of anticipation and joy she experienced prior to her husband's death than she had been shortly after his passing. Well, as we talked, Sadie began to share with me some of her experiences in the recent months. Recognizing the ongoing difficulties Sadie was experiencing, her family urged her to seek professional medical help. So what did she do? Although the therapy sessions helped to some extent, Sadie still felt the loss as a very real pain. And when the doctor recommended medication, well, she tried that too. And that seemed to help as well. But Sadie wanted to be able to wake up in the morning and experience the day as it unfolded around her without depending upon medication to somehow prop her up. Now, I don't want to get sidetracked by a discussion on the efficacy of medication and its appropriate usage. That's a discussion for you to have with your doctor. However, what Sadie had come to realize was this. What she needed was an opportunity to sit down with others in her spiritual home who, like her, had lost a loved one within the last year. Sadie was convinced that talking with others like herself, sharing their pain, their anger, and their joys, sharing their memories in a place where she had prayed and celebrated life, in a place where she now came to say Kaddish, would be of greater help than anything else she had tried. So with Sadie's words driving me forward, I met with Nadine King, our God's Unfinished Business volunteer coordinator, and began to explore how we as a Reformed Jewish congregation could bring bereavement support to the members of our congregational family. So, recognizing that I do not have formal training in counseling, nor the medical administrative skills to organize this, I went to a member of our congregation who has both, Dr. Paul King. As the director of Parkwood Hospital in Olive Branch, Dr. King was more than qualified. And under Paul's direction, and as many of you know, and with the assistance of such volunteer licensed medical professionals as Lisa Barzell, Vicki Bromley, Gloria Siegel, Joe Epstein, Liz Harris, and Nancy Adler, just to name only a few, our caring congregation committee, that we know as God's Unfinished Business, began our bereavement support program. Now called Moving On, Life After Loss, these group sessions have encouraged and supported some of our members as they walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Begun in 2004, Temple Israel has offered these semi-annual sessions for our members and continues to help bring healing to those in mourning. Well, last night was an example of one of these sessions. Gathered in the adult lounge with Dr. King were 6 members of our congregational family, each having recently suffered the loss of a beloved family member, each there to support one another, each there to share in the compassionate care that these sessions provide. It is through such programs as this that Temple Israel continues to be a place of comfort and support. So as we move into the coming week and as we gather together with family and friends to celebrate and give thanks for all the blessings we have in this bountiful country in which we live, we will do many things. We will enjoy the wonderful aromas and flavors of a Thanksgiving dinner. We will smile as we are enveloped by the love of our families. And for many of us, we will take a moment to acknowledge an empty place at the table and to share in some of the memories, to celebrate the life and not the death of our loved ones. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha ulechana el hodot. We praise you, eternal God, to whom our praise and our thanks are due. And as we remember and give thanks to God for our blessed memories, may we also remember and give thanks to all whose lives continue to bring blessings into our lives. Let us not take for granted our loved ones who are very much alive and hopefully still very much involved in our lives. So we can say, Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol. We praise you, eternal God, the source of life. Shabbat shalom. Good Shabbos. And have a happy Thanksgiving.